Imagine for a second that you're walking out into this dense, ancient forest at night.
Oh, a completely pitch black void.
Exactly. You have no flashlight, your phone is completely dead, and, there's absolutely no ambient light from a nearby city. It's just a deeply terrifying, primal experience.
Right. It's totally disorienting.
Yeah. And what does your brain immediately do in that situation? It starts looking for shapes.
Oh, it has to. It's a survival instinct.
It takes the wind howling through the upper branches,
Hmm.
and it turns it into a whispering voice. It turns a swaying shadow into a predator. Your brain just desperately tries to impose some kind of narrative, some kind of order on the darkness, really just to make it feel survivable.
Well, it's a fundamental hardwired survival mechanism, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, the human mind simply cannot tolerate a void. We have this uncontrollable urge to map the unknown, to give it rules, and to name the things that frighten us.
Right.
Because if we can name the shadow, we can fight it, or at least hide from it.
Welcome in. We are doing something a little different for you today in this deep dive. I'm sitting down with our resident expert to explore a massive stack of sources centered around Edith Hamilton's classic work, Mythology.
Leaning heavily on her translations of the ancient Greek poet Hesiod. Yeah.
Exactly. And our mission here isn't to just sit around and recount old fairy tales about guys in togas throwing lightning bolts.
Definitely not.
We're dissecting these texts to understand exactly how the ancients made sense of a terrifying, chaotic universe, long before they had, seismographs or meteorology to explain the ground shaking or the sky catching fire.
It is so tempting from our modern vantage point to look back at these myths and just dismiss them as pure fantasy, right? Or like primitive entertainment.
Oh, for sure.
But for the ancient Greeks, these were comprehensive attempts to decode reality. They were drawing the literal borders of their map, laying down the philosophical foundations of human justice, and, perhaps most crucially, trying to explain the origins of both our intense suffering and our stubborn resilience.
So to see how they built that framework, we really have to strip everything away.
Yeah.
We have to rewind long before Mount Olympus was like the penthouse suite of the gods.
Right back to the starting line.
Hesiod starts at the absolute literal beginning, where there's nothing but chaos.
Mm.
And Hamilton uses Milton's translation to capture it, describing this vast, immeasurable abyss. She calls it outrageous as a sea, dark, wasteful, wild. It's just formless confusion.
And from that formless, unbroken darkness, two concepts emerge: night and Erebus.
Erebus.
Yeah, the texts describe Erebus as the unfathomable depth where death dwells. So the universe essentially begins as this endless stretch of total silence, boundless vacancy, and pure darkness.
I'm struck by how abstract that is. But then the sources provide this, it's this beautiful, almost surreal quote from the comic poet Aristophanes.
Oh, the wind-born egg quote.
Yes, he says that Black-winged Night laid a wind-born egg in the dark bosom of Erebus. And as the seasons rolled, out of this egg sprang love, shining with golden wings. And it was love that created light and radiant day.
It's remarkably poetic.
And suddenly, Earth Gaia and Heaven Orinos just appear.
Notice how the ancients are wrestling with the concept of personification here, though. It starts out incredibly vague. I mean, Earth is the solid ground you walk on, but she also possesses a murky sort of personality.
Right.
And heaven is the blue vault of the sky above you, but acts with human motives. They're trying to capture the feeling of natural change, like the shifting of the constellations or the turning of winter into spring, and they're assigning a pulse to it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that pulse gets monstrous really fast.
Oh, absolutely.
Earth and heaven start having kids, but they aren't the beautiful marble statue gods we usually think of. They are horrific, grotesque forces of nature.
Yeah, totally monstrous.
Like you have 3 creatures born with 100 hands and 50 heads. You have the Cyclops, towering like mountain crags with one giant wheel-like eye in their forehead.
Right.
And then you have the Titans. I always picture this early cosmology, like a toddler trying to comprehend a catastrophic hurricane.
Yeah.
A child doesn't have the vocabulary to explain atmospheric pressure drops,
No, of course not.
To them, a hurricane is just a giant screaming monster with 100 arms tearing up the trees. But I'm still struggling with the severity of it. Why did the Greeks need their creation story to be such a horror show?
What's fascinating here is that they needed a horror show because the world they lived in was horrifying. This is a deliberate attempt to categorize massive, unpredictable trauma.
Okay, that makes sense.
The overwhelming, shattering strength of an earthquake or a tidal wave translates perfectly into a blind, thrashing monster with 100 hands.
Right.
But they're doing something even more sophisticated here. They are categorizing psychological trauma, too, because Heaven, the father of these monsters, is terrified of their power. He hates them. He literally imprisons them deep within the bowels of the earth.
Which sets off the first Great Rebellion. Because Earth is furious that her children are locked away in the dark, so she convinces her Titan son Cronus to ambush his father.
Yeah, and it's a brutal ambush.
Very. Cronus brutally wounds Heaven, and from Heaven's spilled blood hitting the Earth, the giants spring up. But even more interestingly, from that exact same blood come the Furies, the Erinyes.
Ah, the Furies. They are a brilliant psychological invention. They're described as having writhing snakes for hair and eyes that weep tears of blood.
Just terrifying imagery.
Completely.
Yeah.
And their singular purpose is to pursue and punish sinners. The sources explicitly note that while all the other grotesque monsters were eventually driven from the earth, the Furies could never be banished as long as sin existed in the world.
Wow. That is a staggering realization. They understood that you can survive a hurricane, you can rebuild your house after an earthquake, but you simply cannot outrun a guilty conscience.
Exactly.
They essentially weaponized the concept of human guilt and gave it snake hair.
It really shows a profound early understanding of internal human torment. The external world can be conquered, but the internal world, the weight of your own wrongdoings, is an eternal, unkillable monster.
Here's where it gets really interesting. That internal paranoia bleeds perfectly into the next generation. We move from raw, abstract nature into the violence of family dynasties.
Yes, the transition of power.
Cronus overthrows Heaven and becomes the supreme lord of the universe. He marries his sister queen, Rhea. But power makes him incredibly paranoid, especially when he hears a prophecy that one of his own children will inevitably dethrone him, just like he did to his father.
So Cronus adopts a horrifying preventative measure. He simply swallows his children the moment they are born.
Right. And I used to look at that detail and think, okay, this is where the myth just loses the plot. It feels absurd.
It's very bizarre to modern ears.
But Rhea gets tired of watching her kids get eaten. So when her sixth child, Zeus, is born, she hides him in a cave in Crete, and she hands Cronus a heavy stone wrapped in swaddling clothes.
And he swallows the rock whole, thinking it's the baby.
Which sounds like a cartoon.
Oh.
But the text gives us this incredible grounding detail that changes everything. Eventually, Zeus grows up, poisons Cronus, and forces him to throw up his siblings, and the stone comes out too.
Yeah, the disgorged stone.
And that specific stone was actually set up at Delphi. The traveler Pausanias actually reported seeing it around 180 AD, noting that it was a stone of moderate size that the priests dutifully anointed every single day with oil.
The physical presence of that stone is critical. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows how these myths were actively functioning in Greek society.
Oh, so?
Well, on one level, you have a sweeping cosmic drama about the overthrow of a cannibal king. But on a street level, you have a literal physical rock sitting in Delphi that you, as an ancient Greek citizen, could walk up to and look at.
It grounds the theology in physical reality. It's like the ultimate ancient tourist attraction. You can imagine a priest telling a skeptical farmer, look, I know the story sounds impossible, but the rock is right there. Go touch it.
Exactly. It legitimizes the religion for everyday people.
And that rock is the catalyst for a war that nearly rips the universe apart. Zeus frees those hundred-handed monsters from their underground prison to utilize their raw weapons, thunder, lightning, and earthquake.
And he recruits Prometheus, too.
Right. Prometheus is a highly intelligent titan who recognizes that brute force will lose to strategy, so he switches sides to help Zeus.
And the victory of Zeus and his allies allows the Greeks to finally map out their physical and geographical reality. The defeated titans are thrown down into Tartarus.
Which is incredibly deep.
Oh, Hesiod needs you to understand the sheer terrifying scale of this prison. So he says a bronze anvil dropped from the earth would fall for 9 days and 9 nights before hitting the bottom of Tartarus.
That is a long fall.
Yeah. And another defeated titan, Atlas, is condemned to stand at the edge of the world and physically hold the sky apart from the earth.
And then we get one last gasp from the old monstrous world. Earth gives birth to a flaming terror with 100 heads named Typhon.
The ultimate monster.
Zeus strikes him down with thunderbolts and buries him under Mount Etna. which is just a brilliant, convenient way to explain why the island of Sicily has a massive red-hot volcano. It's just Typhon's buried rage boiling up to the surface.
It solves two problems at once, really. The narrative establishes Zeus's ultimate political authority, proving he is the undisputed king, while simultaneously explaining the severe tectonic instability of the Mediterranean region.
Right.
And they didn't just map the vertical axis of heaven, earth, and hell, they mapped the horizontal world you lived on.
The sources describe their view of the Earth as a flat disk, sliced into two equal parts by the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. And I love the linguistic history here. They originally called the Black Sea the Unfriendly Sea.
Which makes sense. It was a very dangerous body of water.
Right. But later, they officially changed the name to the Friendly Sea. It's ancient PR spin. The implication is that they were trying to flatter the water, hoping the sea would treat their ships better if they just gave it a polite name.
It reveals how precarious their existence felt, doesn't it? Even the water had an ego that needed massaging.
Totally.
And wrapping around the entire outer edge of this flat disk was the great mysterious river, ocean. It's fascinating how human imagination populates the extreme edges of a map.
Yeah, the unknown borders.
On one edge, they place the Cimmerians, living in eternal, cloud-wrapped mist where the sun never shines, a place of pure melancholy. But in the extreme north, they imagine the Hyperboreans living in a blissful utopia without sickness or old age, just feasting and playing golden lyres all day.
We still do that today. We look out into deep space or, the unmapped bottom of the Mariana Trench and assume it's either filled with terrifying monsters or advanced utopian civilizations.
Human nature hasn't changed much.
So the monsters are subdued, the borders of the flat Earth are drawn, the tectonic plates are explained. You would think this is a stable, safe environment for humanity to flourish. When we look at how humans actually fit into this map, the sources give us a remarkably pathetic origin story.
Very pathetic.
It starts with Prometheus, whose name translates to forethought, and his brother Epimetheus, which means afterthought.
Right. And Epimetheus is given the monumental task of distributing protective traits and gifts to all the newly created creatures on Earth.
And he operates like a chaotic startup founder who blows through all of his venture capital before he even builds the product.
That's a great way to put it.
He gets completely carried away. He gives out thick fur, armored shells, wings, swiftness, and immense strength to all the animals.
Right, he spends all the resources on the opening acts.
Exactly. So by the time he finally gets around to humans, the cupboards are completely bare. We literally get nothing.
Nothing at all.
Think about your own day-to-day life right now. You rely entirely on manufactured tools, thick clothes, and climate-controlled shelter because, biologically speaking, you are completely defenseless. You have no claws, no venom, no thick hide.
We're very soft.
This myth is the ancients looking down at their own soft, vulnerable hands and realizing they are totally outmatched by the natural world.
It is a deeply humbling self-assessment. Because we were left completely defenseless, Prometheus has to intervene to prevent our immediate extinction.
What does he do?
He alters our posture, making us walk upright like the gods so we can look at the stars. And then he takes the ultimate risk. He steals fire from the sun to give us a technological advantage.
I am fascinated by this because it completely contradicts how we view ourselves today. Modern society views humanity as the absolute, undisputed apex of evolution. We are the main character.
Right, the peak of progress.
But this ancient framework says, no, you were a literal afterthought, a biological mistake that only survived because a rogue titan committed a felony on your behalf.
And that underlying ancient pessimism only deepens with the second creation account the sources provide.
Old assholes.
Yes. Hesiod outlines the story of the 5 ages of metal, which really functions as a sweeping sociological critique of human history. The gods experiment with creating humans, starting with the golden race.
Sounds nice.
It was. These beings live like gods themselves, experiencing no sorrow, no pain, and rich harvests without labor. But instead of progressing and improving, the metal degrades.
They drop down to the silver race, who the text describes as incredibly violent and intellectually stunted.
Yeah, a huge step down.
Then they degrade further into the brass race, who are so obsessed with warfare and weapons that they entirely wipe themselves out. There's a brief, glorious spike with the godlike heroes, the ones who go on legendary quests like the Trojan War. But inevitably, the timeline crashes down to the fifth and final race.
Us?
Exactly. The Iron Race.
And Hesiod's description of the Iron Race is bleak and deeply cynical. He says they live in evil times, their fundamental nature is prone to wickedness, and they never have a moment's rest from brutal toil and sorrow.
It's so depressing.
It gets worse.
Uh,
He warns that each successive generation will grow worse than the last until people stop valuing goodness entirely and brute power becomes the only law of the land.
the text even drops this incredibly sharp, almost modern political warning. Hesiod writes that the Iron Race is doomed to be destroyed by Zeus unless the common people manage to rise up and overthrow the corrupt rulers that oppress them.
It's a very striking detail.
But regardless of the politics, I'm really struggling with the trajectory of this worldview.
How so?
Well, today we just assume the arrow of time points toward progress, right? We have medical breakthroughs, technological revolutions, like we just assume tomorrow will be better than yesterday. But the Greeks looked at the exact same timeline and concluded the best days are permanently behind us and we are just decaying iron.
This raises an important question about how the Greeks viewed progress. To the ancient Greek mind, perfection was in the past. The Golden Age was gone. The present, the Iron Age, was a state of inherent corruption and slow decay. They did not view human existence as a triumphant march forward. They viewed it as a grueling, desperate endurance test against a harsh environment and indifferent tyrannical gods.
Which brings us to the breaking point between humanity and the gods. Prometheus, always looking out for his fragile iron race, decides to trick Zeus to ensure humans can actually keep enough calories to survive.
The meat sacrifice.
Yes. At a massive gathering, Prometheus cuts up a massive ox and divides it into two piles. In the first pile, he hides all the good, nutrient-dense meat inside the gross, unappealing hide and entrails.
Clever.
In the second pile, he takes the bare, useless bones and covers them in a thick layer of mouth-watering, shining fat. He tells Zeus to pick which portion the gods will receive forever.
And Zeus falls for it.
Zeus is totally fooled by the shiny presentation and picks the fat. This means from that day forward, humans get to burn useless bones of the gods, but they get to roast and eat the protein themselves.
It is a masterful trick of forethought, but, well, Zeus is a notoriously unforgiving tyrant. His retaliation for the stolen fire and the trick sacrifice fundamentally and permanently alters the human condition.
It's a devastating retaliation.
Zeus decides to deploy a new weapon against mankind. The first woman, named Pandora, which translates to the gift of all.
We all know the basic pop culture story of Pandora's box. The forbidden lid, the escape of the plagues, the single remaining item at the bottom. But reading the sources, what stands out to me is that she wasn't a random accident or tragic mistake.
No, not at all.
She was a highly designed, retaliatory drone strike sent by Zeus specifically to ruin our lives. The gods hand her a box containing innumerable plagues, sorrows, and mischiefs, and they send her down to Prometheus.
And she is overwhelmed by curiosity.
She lifts the lid and unleashes pure misery into the world.
Yeah, and she slams the lid shut in terror, but it's just too late.
Everything escapes, leaving only hope trapped inside.
While humanity is suddenly forced to deal with disease, unseen sorrow, and sudden death, Zeus turns his personal wrath onto Prometheus.
Right, the architect of all this.
He has his enforcers, literally named Force and Violence, drag Prometheus out to the desolate Caucasus Mountains. They bind him to a high, piercing rock with unbreakable adamantine chains.
It's gruesome.
And every single day, an eagle is sent to tear out and consume his liver, which regenerates every night so the torture can begin again the next morning.
It is an unimaginable, visceral nightmare. But there's a massive catch here. Zeus didn't just chain him to that rock for pure revenge. He wants to extract intelligence.
Yes. The prophecy.
Zeus is paranoid because he knows there is a prophecy stating he will eventually be dethroned by a son, exactly how he dethroned his own father, Cronus. And Prometheus, with his divine forethought, is the only being in the universe who knows the identity of the mother of that prophesied son.
So Zeus sends Hermes down to the rock to demand the secret, and he promises an immediate end to the torture if Prometheus just gives up the name.
But he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. His response is honestly one of the most powerful moments in all of ancient literature. He looks at Hermes and says, "Go and persuade the sea wave not to break. You will persuade me no more easily." He completely refuses to submit to brutal, coercive power. He recognizes his suffering is unjust, and he simply will not yield his leverage to a tyrant, no matter the cost to his own body.
I'm getting chills just thinking about that line. Prometheus is the ultimate symbol of righteous rebellion. He is like the original whistleblower standing up to a corrupt regime.
Absolutely.
He consciously chooses eternal grinding agony over compromising his morals for a dictator. Even though the texts tell us he is eventually freed generations later when the immortal centaur Chiron sacrifices himself and Hercules slays the eagle, the narrative makes it incredibly clear. Prometheus never broke. He never gave up the secret.
He is the pure embodiment of human defiance. But Zeus isn't finished with the rest of us.
Of course not.
Disgusted by the wickedness of the Iron Race and tired of dealing with us, Zeus decides to press the ultimate reset button. He sends a massive world-ending flood that rages for 9 days and 9 nights, drowning the entire flat disk of the Earth.
The sheer might of water drowning out the highest mountain summits. Just total annihilation.
Yeah.
Except Prometheus manages to use that legendary forethought one last time to warn his human son, Deucalion.
And Deucalion listens.
Following his father's instructions, Deucalion builds a sturdy wooden chest, packs it with provisions, and gets inside with his wife, Pyrrha, who, by the way, happens to be the daughter of Pandora.
A great full circle moment there.
They float on this violent sea for 9 days until the water recedes just enough for them to land on the peak of Mount Parnassus. It is the only dry patch of land left on the entire planet.
Zeus looks down, sees that they survived, but takes pity on them because they are faithful worshippers. So he drains the rest of the floodwaters.
But the reality they step out into is horrific.
Oh, yeah. Deucalion and Pyrrha are the only 2 living creatures standing in a completely dead, slimy, ruined world. Desperate, they locate a moss-grown, abandoned temple and pray to the gods, begging for a way to repopulate the earth and end their profound isolation.
And the voice that echoes back through the temple gives them a truly horrifying, macabre instruction. It says, "Veil your heads and cast behind you the bones of your mother."
Which sounds completely sacrilegious.
Pyrrha is instantly terrified. She thinks the gods are commanding her to dig up and desecrate human remains. But Deucalion doesn't panic. He treats the divine instruction like a riddle in an escape room. He realizes, wait, Earth is the mother of all living things, which means her bones are the stones covering the ground.
It's a brilliant leap of logic. They begin gathering heavy stones and throwing them blindly over their shoulders. As the stones strike the muddy earth behind them, they instantly transform into human beings.
It's like magic.
And this new generation of humanity becomes known as the Stone People.
So what does this all mean? The text explicitly notes that they are a hard, enduring race, which makes perfect sense. Look at the desolate, post-apocalyptic world they're being born into. They had to be made of rock just to survive it.
It perfectly synthesizes everything Hesiod and the early Greeks were trying to convey about our existence. Humans are the Stone People.
Right.
The myths ultimately frame human life as an unending, grinding struggle. We are caught squarely between the indifferent, crushing violence of nature, the earthquakes and the floods, and the arbitrary, paranoid tyranny of the gods above us.
We're totally squeezed in the middle.
Exactly. We are an evolutionary afterthought with no natural weapons. We are the decaying, corrupt Iron Age. But crucially, we are also the Stone People. We are built from the bedrock of the earth to endure the plagues that Pandora let loose.
Wow.
Our survival relies entirely on 2 things: the intellectual forethought of Prometheus and the sheer stony endurance of our own physical nature.
It is such a profound, sobering way to look at our place in the universe. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, navigating from the dark, wind-borne egg of chaos through the bloody dynastic wars of the Titans, all the way to the muddy, desperate rebirth of the Stone People.
It's been quite a journey.
It is incredible how much of our modern psychology, our anxieties, and our guilt are reflected perfectly in these ancient mirrors.
They really mapped the human condition beautifully. But, before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought about the mechanics of these myths.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think back to Pandora's box. The common interpretation is that hope was the only good thing left inside, acting as mankind's sole comfort amidst all the new misery.
Right, the silver lining.
But consider the broader context we just discussed. That box was explicitly designed by Zeus as a weapon of mass punishment. Every single other thing in that box was a plague, an evil designed specifically to torture humanity for accepting stolen fire.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Which raises a deeply disturbing question about the ancient mindset. Did the Greeks really view hope as a comfort? Or, if it was placed in the box by a vindictive, angry god, is hope actually the final, most cruel plague of all?
Wait, really?
Yeah. Is hope just the one lingering evil that tricks us into enduring our suffering day after day instead of simply putting an end to it?
Now, there's a dark, heavy thought to keep you company the next time you find yourself staring out into the pitch-black night. We'll leave you to ponder the true nature of hope as you navigate your own modern-day Iron Age.